All right, it is time for a reality check in the torrent of emotion. I get it. The 49ers lost to the Vikings. I get it. Brock Purdy threw an interception in desperation time at the very end of the game. So that is your lasting image here of this football game. But Brock Purdy has still been the most efficient quarterback in football this year. And I'm not even talking about the full season when I say that he was great last night. 3.5 quarters, really good play. This is a team sport. You can't just throw away nearly a full game of excellent quarterback play and say that it was trash because the team around a quarterback failed. So let's have this reality check about Brock Purdy right now. He did play well against the Vikings. No one is saying that Brock Purdy was perfect. I'm not saying that Brock Purdy was perfect. I think that he made one glaring error, and that was the first interception. It was the throw to Jawan Jennings that he missed too far inside. It looked like he regretted throwing it as he was throwing it, but then it kind of just fluttered out of his hand. It was an inaccurate throw. These things happen. Guess what? Patrick Mahomes has 7 interceptions this year. Josh Allen has 7 interceptions this year. Brock Purdy has 3. So picks happen. Even Kirk Cousins, who was great yesterday, threw an interception to start the game. The difference is that Kirk Cousins' pick did not end up hurting him on the scoreboard. Christian McCaffrey fumbled away the 49ers' ensuing possession. Then the Vikings, as a football team, did a great job building a platform from which Kirk Cousins could succeed. They ran the ball against the 49ers. They diffused the 49ers pass rush. The Vikings, by the way, they have 2 of the best offensive tackles in the game, maybe the best offensive tackle duo in the game. Christian Darrisaw is PFF's top graded left tackle in pass protection, and Brian O'Neill is now number 1 in ESPN's pass block win rate at right tackle. So the Vikings built a platform from which Kirk Cousins could succeed. And Cousins helped build it too. It's a team sport. Cousins was accurate. Cousins pulled all the right strings of the line. He gets a whole lot of credit. His teammates get a whole lot of credit. On the other side, the 49ers did not build nearly as robust of a platform for success for Brock Purdy. Case in point, rushing game, 49ers, 22 carries, 65 yards. The Vikings averaged 6 yards a carry in the first half when they were building their platform for Cousins. The 49ers never sniffed 6 yards a carry. They were 3 yards a carry, 22 for 65. The 49ers don't have Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. They didn't even have Trent Williams yesterday because he was hurt. So they had to go with Jalen Moore, who played okay, but at right tackle, Colton McKivitz was a disaster. He's a lot worse than Brian O'Neill. So again, the platform from which Brock Purdy had a chance to succeed was much lower than the one that Kirk Cousins had a chance to succeed from. Despite all that, despite worse pass protection, worse defensive setup, Brock Purdy ends up going 21 of 30 for 272 yards. The efficiency battle with Cousins was captivating for 3+ quarters until it ran out of steam for the 49ers, until all the other deficiencies caught up to them. But this is a team sport. And Purdy, I'll tell you what, this is what he did against the blitz of the Minnesota Vikings. 15 of 19, 10.1 yards per attempt. We talked about how Minnesota was going to bring the heat against the 49ers, and they did bring the heat. Highest blitz rate in the NFL. Purdy didn't fail against a single blitz all night long. His troubles actually came later. Once the 49ers were behind and the Vikings had firmer control of the game with the finish line in sight, they started dropping men into coverage. That's when the interceptions happened. Purdy actually beat the blitzes. He was ready with the hot reads. For a second-year quarterback, that's special. Second-year quarterback that doesn't even have a full season's worth of starts and stats under his belt. He's already at 100% success rate against an opposing blitz. 15 of 19, 10.1 yards per attempt. And it wasn't like any of those 4 incompletions were horrific misses for Brock Purdy. Some of them were throwaways. One, I remember Jawan Jennings couldn't hold on to. He was coming out of a slip. I mean, the point is that Brock Purdy torched the blitz. He didn't torch them when they dropped back into coverage, but that lends itself to the original argument that this is a team sport. You keep the game as close as possible. If you're the 49ers defense, you give Purdy the platform to succeed. You run the football, given the platform to succeed. That doesn't mean that he's a product of the system. That means that he's playing in a team sport. Every single quarterback in the NFL is a system quarterback, from Patrick Mahomes on down. They're all part of a team around them, and the team around them has to succeed. This argument, the system quarterback argument, was I thought it should have been put to rest when Mahomes and the Chiefs got their asses kicked against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. They scored 9 points. Do I blame Mahomes? Hell no, I don't. Blame the fact that the Chiefs didn't have an offensive line and their weapons weren't able to do anything. So does that make Mahomes a system quarterback because he needed the system around him to succeed? Yes, it does. And that also means that system quarterback isn't a bad thing. System quarterback is a truth. It's a fact of the matter in the National Football League. So Purdy yesterday, there are no ifs, ands, and buts about it. He played a good game. He didn't play a perfect game. Nobody is pretending that it was perfect, but complementary football solves all problems. The 49ers are not playing complementary football. When they lost on this date last year, on October 23rd last year to the Chiefs, complementary football or lack thereof was the issue. Then the 49ers came back and delivered a very complimentary effort where the defense helped the offense and the offense helped the defense and special teams helped everybody against the Rams. And then they ripped off 11 more of those in a row. They won 12 straight games, and all of a sudden their problems were far back in the rearview mirror. So they have to return to the complementary formula now. You probably have to start with the defense. The defense was undoubtedly the biggest part of the problem for the 49ers last night. The defense really, really struggled. They gave up 450 yards of total offense. They gave up a 378 to Kirk Cousins through the air. They didn't control game flow. They gave up 8 of 13 third down conversions. The time of possession in this game wasn't any good because, and the play count probably wasn't either, but the Vikings had 35 minutes of possession, only 25 minutes for the 49ers. It's not going to get it done, and it's because the defense couldn't get off the field for the 49ers. I wonder what the play count was. Total offensive plays. I like the online version of this better. Here it is. 66 for the Vikings, 53 for the 49ers. There you go. Vikings were at 6.8 per play, 49ers at 6.1 per play. But when you run 13 fewer plays, that difference in total production spreads out even further. So the 49ers defense lost a handle on the game yesterday. The offense did what it could to maintain that handle. I thought Brock Purdy kept the 49ers alive for a long time in that game. I mean, he was deadly accurate over the first 3+ quarters until he missed that pass to Jennings. There was a pass to Jennings that he hit while Wanham and Danielle Hunter were sandwiching him. There was the scramble on which he showed that elite burst. There were throws outside the numbers, inside the numbers, screen passes. It was a clinic from Brock Purdy, but the 49ers didn't prop him up. And then he ran out of gas at the very end. Again, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was a really, really damn good one for 3.5 quarters. And even Patrick Mahomes needs his team to help him out. We've seen this time and time again. Every single quarterback in the National Football League is a system quarterback. So this is just a reality check coming out of this football game. Here's a data reality check for you. This is quarterback efficiency. Vertical access is up and down, obviously. Look who's at the top. Purdy and Mahomes. Purdy's not a problem, folks. Brock Purdy is still playing really good football. None of these quarterbacks are perfect. All of these quarterbacks require the support of their team. It is beyond time that we bury this ridiculous debate, but I get it because it's probably gone back to Walsh and Montana, Shanahan and Young. Who gets more credit? Play caller, quarterback, system. It's tiresome, though. They all get credit. They all take blame. Purdy takes blame for the mistakes that he made yesterday, but Purdy gets credit for keeping the 49ers in the game. We assign blame in relative degrees. And I'll tell you what, the 49ers defense deserves a whole lot more blame than Brock Purdy and the 49ers offense after giving up 378 passing yards to Kirk Cousins. I'm going to wade into some questions here. There absolutely are reasons for throwing 2 interceptions. And plus, these comments are so pathetically ignorant of the reality of football. Is there an excuse for Patrick Mahomes throwing 7 interceptions this year? You don't need an excuse. Interceptions are part of football. There's no quarterback in the history of football that's gone a season, a career, in multiple games without throwing a pick. Purdy went the first 5 games without throwing a pick, which was exceptional. Finally, in game 6, he threw his first one. Interceptions are part of the game. You know what else is part of the game that's a much bigger barometer of success? Efficiency. Guess where Purdy is? Number 1 in the league, even after last night's game, where he wasn't bad by any question. So there are no excuses necessary for throwing interceptions. Just how the football game works. Sounds like you're the one that's too biased. I'm the one just spitting football facts right now. Numbers do not lie. They don't. Tell me, whose fault are all Patrick Mahomes' picks? Whose fault are all of Josh Allen's picks? Is Purdy the only one that is being singled out for interceptions here? And why is that? That's bias. That's bias right there. I mean, the wide receiver depth is fine on the 49ers. Obviously, if you're missing Deebo Samuel, who's a star player, you're going to be worse. Thought Ray McLeod and Jawan Jennings made some good plays yesterday. So, yeah, they are a little bit hamstrung compared to where they would have been, but this is a loaded team. They were producing in the pass game, 10.1 per attempt, especially against the blitz. It was nice. They needed some defensive support yesterday. You can't give up 35 minutes of possession, all those third down conversions on the defensive side of the ball, and then expect the offense to control game flow, especially when it didn't have its left tackle and Trent Williams. And obviously, you just mentioned they didn't have Deebo Samuel. Exactly here. Stop expecting Brock Purdy to have a perfect game when the team implodes. Patrick Mahomes does not have perfect games when the team implodes. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs got their asses kicked when the team imploded around him. The same is going to happen to Brock Purdy. They didn't get their asses kicked. They lost by 5. The same is going to happen to Josh Allen. The same is going to happen to Tua. Name your quarterback. Go back to Joe Montana. Go back to Steve Young if you have to. Marino. I'm just going to list all the great quarterbacks in NFL history. It's a team sport, and if the team does not perform well around them, they will lose, and you would have been on YouTube complaining about that performance because it wasn't perfect, and you would still be unrealistic. We're just being realistic. This is a realism bomb for you. Just because you're emotional doesn't mean that you get to fairly throw it all out on one player when that one player does not deserve that level of blame. This is a more fair assessment. Purdy had 2 chances to be a hero. We still need to see it. He's been great when not behind. He's also had a game where he was really good when he was behind against the Raiders last year. He just hasn't been behind all too often. You know, there's a stat, and I'll get the exact numbers on it, but a come from behind stat for quarterbacks. How often do they succeed in go-ahead drives, game-winning drives? And the percentage is really low. The percentage is probably only like, I think it's somewhere between 20 and 30%. Don't quote me on that. I'll check it. But basically, think of Brock Purdy's career. He's been behind against the Raiders last year. He came back. He got the job done. So 1 for 1. He was behind against the Browns last week. They missed the field goal, so they didn't win the game. So you could say 1 for 2. You could say that it didn't work out, but he damn near did everything he could have on that last drive to put the 49ers in position to be 2 for 2 when he's trying to come back. And then there was last night. Yeah, last night. Okay, he threw the 2 picks. 1 in true desperation time. So Purdy's 1 for 3, which is about where all the good quarterbacks are as far as comeback ability. They're about 33% at best. And he'd be 66%. The point is the sample size of Purdy being behind in these games is tiny. You got to let it grow. The bigger sample size is the one that we see of efficiency here. And Purdy is still at the top of the league. So it's just time for people to view this fairly. Do not treat the quarterback like God. Do not say, okay, he needs to be able to do every single play, execute every single play without any mistakes, because that's just not realistic in a chaotic sport like football. And you know what? I agree with this too. I don't think the loss is all on the defense. I think that most of it is, but not all on the defense. I put some of it on Brock Purdy too. Yeah, funny enough, Cleveland also gave up 450 plus yards on defense this past game. There is no NFL seasons are messy things. There's no perfection even from the very best teams. Just ask the Patriots in 2007. They went 18-1. NFL seasons are very messy things. So we have to collect data on the aggregate. And on the aggregate, I'm going to keep on showing this because Purdy's dot is way at the top because he's been damn good this year. And that's the perspective that we need at all times. A lot of you need to learn the game, to be honest. The first red flag, kind of the thing that gives away whether or not somebody understands football and the dynamic of a team sport, if they start crying about making excuses. If somebody says the word making excuses, that's a good indicator that they don't know what they're talking about in terms of football. Because that means that they're in the position of wanting to throw a temper tantrum and blame people and point fingers and have all their rage directed at one person because it makes them feel better. That means they're not in the headspace of wanting to understand the nuance of a football game. So the minute somebody says you're just making excuses, that shows us that they're not ready to have a serious football discussion, that they're in a childlike kind of state of mind. Because a serious, rational football discussion acknowledges that it's a team sport, that there are multiple components all striving for the same goal, but all with very different jobs. And the quality of execution of all those individual jobs is going to affect the ease of the other jobs on the field. So when we evaluate one player's performance, we cannot do it in a vacuum. We have to do it with nuance. So the moment that somebody starts using the word excuses, well, that just tells you they don't understand nuance. That just means that there's no rational way of looking at this. And it's never just one thing. It's never just one thing. Somebody's saying bad play calling. That's all it is. Well, I didn't see any bad play calling from the offense. I saw Kyle Shanahan throw the ball when he had to throw the ball because the Vikings were lighting the 49ers up with blitzes. The run game wasn't working particularly well, especially without Trent Williams. I saw open receivers, and I saw Brock Purdy throwing open receivers. There was no blatantly bad play call on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, you could make a better case about that, right? You could say, hey, the 49ers got a little too risky with some of those blitzes. But again, saying something like play calling without offering any context, that's also just kind of a scapegoat thing. You have to realize that this is an intricate puzzle. Many different pieces are working together or trying to work together. And the 49ers, the past 2 weeks, have not cohesively brought those pieces together. But over the course of their 12-game win streak last year, over the course of their 5-game win streak to open this season, those pieces have come together. And it's looked a whole lot better than it has over the past 2 weeks. That's what I mean when I say complementary football solves all problems. If Christian McCaffrey hadn't fumbled on the first drive, you're likely talking about a Brock Purdy win. If the 49ers defense had done a little bit better than what they put out there, which was not forcing the Vikings to punt until the fourth quarter, we're likely talking about a 49ers win helmed by Brock Purdy. He kept them in the game with some of the really tough throws that he made. The degree of difficulty on many of Brock Purdy's throws, Cousins made some excellent, accurate throws yesterday. I'm not going to take anything away from him. But the degree of difficulty on some of Purdy's, the layered throws over the middle, the really nice one to George Kittle in between the screen passes to McCaffrey on that really quick touchdown drive in the third quarter, Those plays, those throws, those were A-list throws from Brock Purdy. And he was making them time and time and time again. And then one slipped out of his hand. I don't know if it slipped or if there was a miscommunication with Jennings. We'll find out more about that in the future. But the play didn't work out. And it was a big interception by Cam Bynum. And finally, the 49ers, I mean, they're playing a bad game script. They're playing from behind, thanks in large part to their defense, to their special teams. You can add that into the mix, the missed field goal. Finally, they caught up with them. Just the way life works sometimes. But again, you look at the big picture, and the big picture says 49ers are 5-2, still in first place in the NFC West. Brock Purdy's at the top here. You have a little bit of time to be emotional, I get it, but we have to be realistic in the big picture. And realism means looking at this, means looking at Purdy's full body of work, not only just yesterday, but over the course of the entire season. And he's been a godsend for the 49ers, no question about it. Even yesterday, he kept them in the football game. Yeah, Jennings did slip up. That was a tough play because it cost the 49ers a first down. It's always a team failure in football. Always. It is the ultimate team sport. We live in an era of individualism where people want credit and blame to go to just one player. This is not the sport for you. If you are into individualism, football is not the sport for you. This is a collective sport. It's a team sport. So blame goes around, credit goes around every single time. I get it. Basketball, I think the NBA, it's more about the individual player just because that's kind of how the NBA is set up. They market the star players. The NFL might be moving a little bit more towards that with fantasy football, but I'm just here to report on how the 49ers operate. And this team operates very collectively. Complementary football is a huge, huge buzz term in that locker room. When they play complementary football, they look damn near unstoppable. When they don't, well, they look very stoppable as they have the past 2 weeks. But they're still on all these games. It's still a good team. They've got to fix that defense, though. Debo and Trent are obviously a big core of what the 49ers are missing. Yeah, that being said, I mean, the biggest piece of context here is that the offense had 2 massive injuries in Debo Samuel and Trent Williams. The defense didn't. Like last year against Kansas City, the defense was healthy. And they got roasted by Kansas City. They got roasted by Kirk Cousins and Minnesota. If there was a saving grace for the defense and something they could build off of, it was the goal line defense. That was solid. They made plays on the goal line. They stiffened up against the run. It showed me that they have the ability to do that. I already knew they had the ability to do that. This team has a lot of talent. It's no secret. But now they have to carry that in between the 20s or in between the 5s into the middle of the field. Somebody asked me what I do to fix the defense. They have to start stopping the run. I wrote an article about it last week. That was the big piece that I opened up with after the 49ers beat the Browns. And I'm proud of myself for writing it. Nobody else was talking about it. Everybody's like, oh, they'll be fine. It's just a 1-game sample. It's like, no, the same issues against the run reared their ugly heads in this game against the Minnesota Vikings. And PJ Walker wasn't the quarterback anymore. It's Kirk Cousins who's good. This is the piece. Google it. Check it out. Kirk Cousins made the 49ers pay. The Vikings built a platform around Kirk Cousins for him to succeed, while the 49ers did not do the same for Brock Purdy. And Purdy still fought through it and damn near won that game for him. Did he fail at the end? Yes, he did. Is there context behind that failure? Yes, there is. Is that what we talk about on the channel? Of course, we talk about the nuance, because the nuance in the big picture helps us understand things. It helps us realize that, you know, if I had just followed the path of everybody freaking out in 2021, I would have been wrong about the 49ers turnaround, because they did turn it around. I would have been wrong in 2022 about the 49ers turnaround, because they did turn it around. Same thing here. You look at the talent, you look at the track record, and you say, how can this team fix things? You don't just throw your hands up in the air and say, "Oh, bench everybody. This guy sucks." It's just not the way the sport works, and it's definitely not the way the 49ers are set up with their load of talent this year. I don't think the 49ers need a big trade to fix this. I think they need to start focusing on stopping the run. May take a little bit more hair on fire effort defensively. You control the line of scrimmage. Get Trent Williams back. Stop the run on the defensive line. Deebo Samuel helps you inflict some punishment, set tones against opposing defenses. The sky is not falling. This team is 5-2 and at the top of the NFC West. There's some perspective really is needed. They started 3-5 in 2021, 3-4 in 2022, ended in an NFC Championship game in both of those two seasons. This is a team with a winning track record that has even more talent this year. They've got to start playing like it along the defensive line. They were playing like it over 5 games. They stopped playing like it over the past 2. They've given up way too much on the ground. You fix that, you get your guys back on offense, and you move forward. It is gut check time for the 49ers. Cincinnati Bengals coming to town. Short week for the Niners. Extra rest coming off a bye for the Bengals. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a dogfight, but that's exactly what the 49ers need right now. They need to show that they can win a dogfight. They've shown they could win the blowouts to start the season. Now they need to show they can win these close, tough, bruising games. None will be tougher than this week coming off of short rest against the Cincinnati Bengals. But a chance for Brock Purdy to continue to play well because he played well, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Complementary football solves all problems. 49ers return to complementary football like they've already done over the first 5 games of this season. Well, then Brock Purdy might start getting the credit that he deserves. It wasn't perfect. Nobody's saying that it was. There was a one really regrettable interception there from Brock Purdy, but that's just the way that life works in football sometimes. Everybody have a great rest of your morning, afternoon, wherever you are. We'll talk to you soon.